The Sweet 16 matchups are set. I'm going to give my predictions on them and which teams I have making the Final Four. I'll go in order of regions. Notre Dame and Oregon are kicking off the Sweet 16 matchups. I think both teams are better than given credit for, which makes it tricky to pick a winner. Oregon State has a huge advantage in roster depth, but the NC State and Ole Miss game are proof that it takes more than that to beat Notre Dame. Reagan Beers is going to be a massive problem. She's an All-American center who is able to cook even against tough Pac-12 defenses. I don't think Notre Dame will be able to do anything against her. Their guard play isn't too shabby either. I expect it to be a very tough game, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame. They have looked completely unstoppable in March. Even with their low bench depth numbers, they seem to always find a way. A big part of that is everyone has bought into their role. No one tries to do too much, and everyone is making the right plays at the right time. I have them advancing to the Elite Eight, which would be the first time in the Neil Ivey era. Next, we have South Carolina versus Indiana. I'm very concerned for Mackenzie Holmes. She's coming off a monster game against Oklahoma. I'm not even trying to be funny when I say this, but this game might cause her to be undrafted. I think that's how bad it will be. What Raven and Fulwiley did to Deja Kelly is exactly what I think Camila Cardoso and Ashlyn Watkins will do to Mackenzie. In fact, Cameron Brink and Erie Offen did the same thing at the beginning of the year. Indiana hasn't even seen a player like Camila Cardoso or Ashlyn Watkins, and they definitely haven't played against someone like Fulwiley. They have no past game they can look back on that will help prepare them for this. I don't think it will be as bad as the North Carolina game, but I could see this being over by halftime. When South Carolina plays their brand of basketball, they aren't just unbeatable. No other team is close to them. Every game they have struggled against is because they try to play the way the other teams plays. When they force people to play their style, the games are over very quickly. So that would mean the Elite Eight will be a rematch between South Carolina and Notre Dame, which was not a competitive basketball game. Notre Dame is a much better than they were on opening day. The problem is South Carolina got better too. If Hannah Hidalgo has a similar game she had against South Carolina, but is much more efficient, and if Citron and Westbeld play a lot better, then maybe, just maybe, Notre Dame has a chance. But they would still need South Carolina to play terrible. There's just too many things that have to go right. If South Carolina plays Oregon State instead, I still have South Carolina going to the Final Four. I said that South Carolina was a Final Four team well before the season started, even with all the players they lost. And seeing how they are playing now, there's no reason to backtrack from that. Moving on to Albany 2, which I think by far will have the most competitive games. Albany 2 is in a unique situation. I think everyone in this region has a good chance to make the Final Four. None of the teams making it would surprise me. Before the start of the tournament, I had UCLA going to the Final Four. I feel a lot less confident about this. They have a national championship level roster, but not a championship mindset. The first two rounds they played like a team that was happy just to be in the tournament. Not a team trying to make a deep playoff run. Creighton out-hustled and outworked UCLA. UCLA was able to win because of their immense roster talent. It's going to take more than that going forward. Colorado versus Iowa will be a tough game. I had Colorado beating Iowa in my bracket. But after the West Virginia game, I'm starting to think otherwise, for two major reasons. The first being that there's no way Iowa shoots that bad from three in back-to-back games. Colorado got unlucky that West Virginia happened to be the night they shot so bad. The second reason I changed my mind is that Iowa shot 57 free throws in the last two games. In order to overcome something that ridiculous, you need an elite offense. Colorado's offense has been too inconsistent. Sometimes they look like one of the best scoring teams in the country, other times they can barely score 60. So I'm going to choose Iowa. If UCLA plays like they did against Creighton, saying they won't beat LSU is an understatement. They wouldn't beat any team in the Sweet 16 playing like that. LSU didn't look particularly great versus Rice either. Rice made more field goals and made more three-pointers than them. Too bad Rice only took 8 free throws compared to LSU's 31. But I'm going to assume both teams play like they normally have been playing, because I can't see either team playing that bad again. In that case, I think UCLA wins. Why is that? It's because UCLA has multiple guards who are quick and can also shoot the ball. This will allow them to exploit Michaela Williams and Haley Van Lit's defensive deficiencies. Anissa Morrow and Angel Reese won't be able to help on defense because they will have to focus on UCLA's bigs. Most importantly, UCLA has a lot of depth, so they can keep rotating players and play at a high speed while LSU gets tired. Every team that LSU has lost to is because the other team has more depth, and their post players have the size to limit Angel Reese and Anissa Morrow. LSU's biggest advantage is coaching. Kim Mulkey is a much better X's and O's coach than Corey Close. That can tip things in LSU's favor. If Colorado upsets Iowa, I think UCLA goes to the Final Four. But if they play Iowa, I have a weird feeling UCLA will end up playing a C game and end up losing. Logically, they have way too much size for Iowa. And Iowa won't be able to pack the paint like they did against South Carolina last year because UCLA can actually shoot. But something just feels off. Iowa this year feels like the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though they look vulnerable and have teams very close to beating them, they just always find a way to squeak by. Every game they look like they'll lose, they end up winning it. I'm going to change my mind and say Iowa makes the Final Four. And now that I said this, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up losing to Colorado. And I instantly regret changing my mind. I'm not going to spend much time talking about USC versus Baylor. No disrespect to Baylor, but they are by far the worst team here. I'm not one to say, oh well, if so-and-so was playing, that team would have won. But seeing how much Baylor struggled against Virginia Tech without Kitley, there's no way they would be in the Sweet 16 if Kitley doesn't get hurt. The biggest chance Baylor has is hoping that USC plays down to their competition. But Lindsey Gottlieb isn't the type of coach to go for that. USC has been on an absolute tear, and it's very hard to see Baylor getting in the way of that. Duke versus UConn will prove to be an amazing game, and I could see it going either way. The key to beating UConn is just stopping either Paige Beckers or Aaliyah Edwards. It doesn't matter if one goes off if you stop the other one. The games they have lost are proof of this, and Kara Larson is definitely smart enough to figure this out. That being said, I think UConn narrowly pulls it out. And to be frank, UConn better win this game. You have all these coaches and media ready to crown Paige Beckers again as Caitlin's rival, leapfrogging all these other exceptional players. If that's true, you can't lose to a team like Duke in the tournament. That would mean the Elite Eight matchup will be USC versus UConn. I can't express how badly I want to see this matchup. We need to see Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers. There's all this talk and debate, and this is the time to settle it. For this matchup, I'm going with USC. I had USC going to the Final Four before the tournament started, but I feel even more confident now than I did before. I think all the revitalized Paige Beckers hype will backfire, because they keep poking the bear. Juju hears all this. USC players hear all this. They are going to be gunning for Paige and UConn. They are going to come out with a fire and intensity that will have everyone worried going forward. There's not a single player on UConn that will be able to stop Juju Watkins. This is a rare moment where Paige isn't the biggest guard on the floor. The Nika Mool guarding the best player experiment has failed miserably all season. I can't see Gino trying that ridiculous strategy that Tara Vanderveer did in the Pac-12 championship. But if UConn does try to double and triple Juju every play, they might as well hand USC the game, because the other players have proven they can step up. I think Paige Beckers will have a lot of problems with USC's size. Eventually she'll get hot, because it's impossible to keep a player like that down forever. But it will be too late. I expect Aaliyah Edwards to get a double-double like she did the last game, but USC's post defense will stop her from going crazy. I really hope USC doesn't choke against Baylor, and Duke doesn't upset UConn, because I badly want to see this matchup. USC has been the best team in the best conference, so I don't think having them in the Final Four is a hot take. I'm going to be honest, I'm not high on any team in Portland 4. I think they all have issues in terms of making a serious title run. But by default, someone has to win. For example, NC State is going against Stanford. NC State is a great team, but they blow leads way too much for my liking. They got outscored by 11 points in the second half by Tennessee, and this is not the first time something like that has happened. They get away with this a lot, but sometimes it hurts them, like when they played against Virginia Tech. NC State is good enough to beat a fully healthy UConn team by double digits and blow out a team like Colorado, but they can also lose to a team like Miami that missed the tournament. Stanford has the best post player duo in the country in Kiki Iriafen and Cameron Brink. The problem is, that's all they have. Stanford 2-on-5 basketball has carried them pretty far, but it's not sustainable. It almost burned them against Iowa State, and I think it will burn them against NC State. I have to admit I was wrong about Gonzaga. Many people, myself included, said they were not deserving of a 4 seed. They clearly took that personally, as they beat Utah and advanced to the Sweet 16. They are playing against Texas. I'm a little nervous seeing how Texas struggled a little bit against Alabama. When Aaliyah Moore and Madison Booker are playing as great as they did, you would think the game would be a blowout. But I'm going with Texas because Gonzaga's live and die by the 3 strategy can only work for so long. It's not sustainable in a tournament-type setting, so that means the Elite Eight would be against Texas and NC State. As I said before, I'm not confident in any of the teams in this region. I picked NC State to go to the Final Four in my bracket, and I'll stick with my pick. I have a feeling they will recreate the magic they had in the non-conference season. In general, NC State seems to do better when they play a team for the first time. 4 out of 6 of their losses were rematches. I expect Madison Booker to get NC State a massive amount of trouble, but I don't think they have enough firepower to make the Final Four. To summarize everything, my Final Four selections are South Carolina, Iowa, USC, and NC State. I feel very confident about South Carolina and USC making it. I went back and forth between Iowa and UCLA. Region 4 is the hardest to guess because all the teams are so up and down. I would not be shocked if we end up getting 2 Pac-12 teams in the Final Four, especially considering they have 5 teams in the Sweet 16. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you later.